I get really pissed off talking about Ukraine. Man, you know, I've met a lot of Ukrainian individuals that have been forced to flee their towns in Ukraine, that have watched their family members die, that have seen their houses turned into rubble by Russian troops, and if they didn't escape, they'd be dead too right now, right? Like I've talked to these individuals. I've met with these individuals. I mean, when I was down in Texas, there was a Ukrainian woman. She was around my age, 20 years old. She came up to me and she was like on the verge of tears, just because of how thankful she was, and the comfort that my lives gave to her. And I just it just when people deny, oh man, it's very upsetting to me when I hear that shit. You know what I mean? What's going on, son? Or do you support Trump?
I guess I do support Trump.
Oh, Jesus. Why do you support Trump?
I mean, I guess it's not really a support Trump thing as much as it is. I believe he was the best candidate I was given a choice to vote for.
Okay. All right. So, why do you support him? Why do you think he's the best candidate? Why do you think he's good at his job? Take it away.
Well, I mean, when his first 4 years when he was in office, I felt like financially I was better off. It was better, easier to prepare for or to provide for my family.
Okay. Okay. So, what did he do to make it easier to provide for your family? Or what did the Democrats do to make it harder for you to provide for your family?
Well, and when to provide for the family, for me personally, it comes down to I think they give more money to we give more money back to play to underprivileged people, and that's going to sound bad when I say underprivileged, but you know the poverty level gets there. But when we give back into those programs so much money all the time, I feel like sometimes we're giving more, and it gives people an incentive to not work.
Okay, well, that's not true. And that's just empirically disproven. So, the more social safety nets that a country has, the more economic mobility they have, which means the easier it is for somebody to work harder and make more money and scale up in like social classes and income. And that's just empirically true. I mean, like the measure would be to compare the economic mobility of a Nordic country to even the economic mobility of America. And what we see is that once again, because we have lower levels of social safety nets, there's less economic mobility, which makes it harder for people to go to work and make more money. So, I mean, that's a hypothesis that just simply doesn't align with the facts of reality.
Okay. Well, I can tell you, I can give you a couple of examples here. I have some people that work for me and they're like, I want to give them a raise or give them a promotion. Like, I can't take that promotion. It has to be this amount because I'm going to lose my free daycare and my free other stuff. So it's like, I can't take that. You'll have to promote me 2 steps higher, but that's just not the way the ladder works. You can't go 2 steps higher. You can only go one at a time.
Okay. All right. So you're giving me an example of somebody that you know in your interpersonal life, one person out of over 300 million. And I'm giving you an example of like the totality of the economy in one country compared to the totality of the economy in another country. So although we would be able to identify some individuals that may take advantage of social safety nets, and they would serve to like hold them back from working harder to make more money for miscellaneous reasons, what we see when we go from examining like a group of 5 people to a group of like 400 million people is that's just simply not true on average. On average, social safety nets help people excel and make more money and scale income brackets. So yeah.
And then I know you earlier, I heard you talking about the tariff stuff. And I'm not saying that tariffs are always a good thing, but China tariff stuff's at a rate at 32.6%.
It's actually not true. Right now it's 10. At least according to Trump. I mean, you could say Trump is lying if you want.
Um, Trump's lying because that's not what the facts say. The facts say they tariff us at a rate of 32.6 and Canada is 25.
I think that it was 32.6 prior, but like I think now like their average level of tariff is like 15 or something. But like
Which
okay,
would be,
like what is
would
this?
be good.
Why does this
Okay.
matter?
Well, I was just saying when we talk about those things, I think that's what the tariffs were meant to do was like make China and Canada bring theirs down.
Okay. All right.
On
Like for he was able to get China to reduce their tariffs on us, but like the end result was also us increasing our tariffs on them indefinitely, and that's a bad thing because ultimately the American consumers pay those tariffs. So why is it like a win that like the American people are paying more money?
well, it's not that they're going to pay more money; they're going to pay more money in the short term. Eventually,
In the
the
long term.
tariffs
This is
come
the long
down.
term deal. This is the long term deal. It was announced yesterday, right? The long
Yeah,
term
but
deal, the definite deal with the country for the long term is we charge China higher tariffs and they charge us lower tariffs.
I thought he said indefinitely, not permanently.
So that's the long-term deal. The long-term deal is Americans paying more.
It's indefinite. Once it comes down, I'm assuming, I'm
We have no
hoping.
reason to believe that it will.
But if he'll lower those tariffs and then we can get it flatten it out, that'll help.
But we have no reason to believe that it will. Everything that he's ever done or said indicates the opposite. So that's a conspiracy theory. Like, what's the opposite between you basically believing that Donald Trump is inevitably going to lower tariffs on China when he's actually just shown a track record of increasing them and announcing a long-term deal with increased tariffs on the country? I mean, what's like the relevant distinction between that conspiracy theory that he's inevitably
Well,
going to lower them and like the conspiracy theory that vaccines don't work or the earth is flat? Okay, like all the evidence disagrees with you and there's no evidence that agrees with you.
the tariffs have only been in place for what, 6 months?
So actually, he announced his like first non-permanent tariffs, like the reciprocal quote unquote ones. But then he was able to achieve the long-term trade deal with China. And the most recent update that we have is they have 10% tariffs on us and we have 55% tariffs on them. And that is the announced long-term like trade deal. Okay. What reason do we have to believe that we'll inevitably lower our tariffs on them?
Because my head says it has to.
You're right.
Can't just
So you don't have
continue
any.
to go.
So you don't have any.
Yeah.
So you're trying to debate me with feelings. I'm trying to debate you with facts. Who wins?
Well, we have already decided they came down 10%. That's going to help us be able to sell our goods and bring money into the economy because we're not paying 32.6% anymore. We're down to 10.
I care more about Americans paying less than I do about our exporters exporting more. I'm not going to lie.
But you don't think that would help bring money into the economy if they're able to export more and get more money into the economy because it's coming into the country?
No, there's like very marginal upsides to China reducing their average tariff on American goods by 10%. Yeah, that will slightly increase our tariffs and that will bring a little bit more money into the American economy. All right. But I care more about Americans paying less because the impacts of our now 55% tariffs on the country being a regressive tax that disproportionately hurts Americans the less money they make also produces more inefficiencies because then Americans are going to be spending less because the goods cost more. So there's going to be more money lost via the opportunity cost, as well as just like the humanitarian impacts are drastic. So once again, I care about Americans paying more than I do about exporters exporting more.
But I think and I'm not saying what you're saying isn't true. I still think that's going to be a short term problem. Sometimes it gets worse before it gets better, but if we can get through that, we can create a few more jobs here, hopefully.
Right.
And
But
like I said,
we already agreed that you don't have evidence for this. So please stop trying to run an argument on me that you don't have any evidence for. Because we already agreed that you don't have any evidence of this. So stop it.
we didn't agree. You agreed.
Oh,
But
I asked you what the evidence was and you weren't able to give me any. So you just think that you have evidence even though you can't articulate it?
what we're saying is that I think that it's going to be that way, but we don't have any evidence
Right.
yet because it hasn't happened yet.
Oh,
It's
right.
like a
So then you
hypothesis.
agree that you don't have any evidence. So why are you trying to run an
It's a
argument on me
hypothesis.
in a debate that doesn't have any evidence for it? Right. And then you just said that it's hypothesis. Well, we should only believe in hypotheses that track truth. Okay. And if a hypothesis tracks truth, it has evidence, right? Like, you know what I mean?
Well, the tariffs going in have already made it to where the fact that China has lowered theirs, and you said yourself that there's a marginal gain there.
What I'm saying that you don't have evidence for is the fact that we're going to lower our tariffs on them, not that they're going to lower tariffs on us. Okay, like, why is this taking like I'm sorry, like what the fuck is going on? Like you admit that you don't have any evidence for it. You said that explicitly. Why are we still debating this? Why are we debating something that you don't have evidence for? This is brain rot.
Okay. We can
Think about it.
We can go back to something you said earlier when you were talking about being pro-life and all that, and Trump's doing all those things. Trump wasn't even in office when the Roe v. Wade was reversed.
Yeah, you're right. He wasn't in office. That doesn't mean that he didn't cause it. Not to mention, he believes he caused it. He boasts it as one of his accomplishments. But the reason it was overturned was before he left office during his first administration, he was able to elect and nominate 3 conservative Supreme Court justices to SCOTUS, okay, before their official nominations by the Senate, their confirmations by the Senate. He said that he made these picks so they'd overturn Roe v. Wade. Once they were nominated and confirmed by the Senate, he then said, I can't wait for them them to overturn Roe v. Wade. That's what they're going to do because I asked them. And then when they did overturn Roe v. Wade, he said, that was because of me. This is one of my wins. I caused that. And this is one of my accomplishments.
And even at that, he didn't say abortion was illegal. He left it up to the states, which 14 states have banned it, only 14.
Right, just like the Confederacy wanted to not federally legalize slavery, they just wanted to leave it up to the states, so it was no big deal, right? I don't think that human rights should be left up to the states. Okay, I also think that anybody with half a brain would understand and acknowledge that Donald Trump knew states would ban it, yet he still decided to incentivize his nominations to overturn it, meaning that he's also directly culpable and responsible alongside the legislators of the states for those abortion bans, right? Like, if I have a child and I know if I give them a pew-pew, they're going to turn it around and unalive themselves, and I do give them that pew-pew, okay, I'm going to be responsible for that, right? Because I knew they were going to do it. I could have prevented them from doing it by not giving them a pew-pew, but I still decided to give them the pew-pew nonetheless. Well, that's what Donald Trump did. He knew that these states would enact extreme abortion bans that would violate women and girls' human rights and bodily autonomy and access to American health care, and he could have stopped them from having the ability to do that by not nominating justices specifically to overturn Roe v. Wade, but he did anyways, knowing it would lead to that outcome, so he's also responsible for it.
And he might be responsible for it, but what I'm saying is it's still up to the states.
Okay,
People that have,
so you're basically saying that he's responsible as well as the state legislators are responsible. I couldn't agree more.
but the state legislators are responsible, and those are the people that those people in those states voted for to put there to make that, to speak for them.
Oh, okay. So then also the people in the states that voted for the state legislators are responsible. I couldn't agree more. Yeah, we agree that Trump is responsible for this treacherous outcome. The state legislators are responsible for this treacherous outcome. And then the people that voted for these state legislators are responsible for this treacherous outcome. Seems like we
They're
agree.
responsible for the outcome. I didn't say it was treacherous. I believe the state should have more rights and it should be less federalized on a lot of things.
Should states have the rights to legislate on human rights? Or should states have the ability to legislate on human rights?
Yes, I think the state should.
So if everybody in Alabama wanted slavery back, you'd be okay with that?
I mean, if that's what they want to do, I guess. That would be up to them. I don't. I'm not.
Again? I know the woman for you. I know the woman for you. I know the woman for you, you piece of shit. But that's neither here nor there. Do you understand what you just fucking said? Do you even understand what you just said? You just said that if everybody wanted to treat black people like property, subhuman, violate their human rights, act as if women can't feel pain so we could rape them, you'd be completely fine with that. Do you hear what you're saying, you despicable, gross old man? You despicable, old, gross shit.
That's not what I said.
That is what you said. You said if everybody in Alabama wanted this, then they could have it and you'd find no issue with it. I have a question. If everybody in this live wanted to sequester you to a cage for the rest of your life, would you be okay with that?
I would just move this from that state so that I didn't have to live under those rules.
Okay, so I just want to clarify, the way that you would have resolved conflicts between the Union and the Confederacy was advocating for the Confederacy to uphold and maintain the right to legislate and legalize the right for a white man to own a black man as property for life. And you would have just simply told the black enslaved individuals to try to escape to the North, right? That would have been your resolution. That would have been your resolution, right?
You went to the slavery
right, so
thing.
You would have been a Confederate, right? You would have been sitting right beside Robert E. Lee fighting for states' rights because you really think that it's just a great, phenomenal thing for people to have the power to make other people, legally speaking, not people. Yeah, I mean, you just think that's great, right? Once again, answer my question. If everybody in this live voted to sequester you to a cage for the rest of your life, would you be okay with that?
I guess they can question me wherever. I don't care about me as part.
You don't care about that? Okay, yeah,
I'm
you're
thinking
just a
I did not.
disingenuous.
I was
You're just
not trying to
you're
say that I'm okay
disingenuous.
with anyone owning a slave because that's not okay,
So
and
then
I'm
why
not
would you be
okay
okay
with
with
that.
states legalizing it based upon majority support?
I'm not really okay with them doing that, but it wasn't as parallel as you made it sound. Where we're saying what I was talking about in slavery. They're two different things, in my opinion. I was not talking about owning a slavery in
That's
any way, shape,
sir.
or form.
That's a question that I asked you. I vocally asked you the question: if
I
everybody in
know.
Alabama wanted slavery back, would you be okay with that? You said yes.
I said, and I hope they would not do that. But I don't think they should have slaves, and I wasn't trying to be
Do
that
you
way.
think
What
that
I'm
the
saying is, I
state of
do think
Alabama
that
should have the
slaves.
legal ability to legalize slavery?
No, I don't.
Okay, so
I should
then you
never
do
say
think that
that.
human rights should be protected by the federal government, right?
Yes.
Okay, if human rights should be protected by
Some
the federal
human rights.
government, would you agree that it is a human rights violation to infringe upon somebody's bodily autonomy without good enough reason? An example of this would be kidnapping.
I mean, no, yeah, you can't kidnap people. You
Okay.
can't let them
So,
kidnap people.
so can we agree that it's a human rights violation to infringe upon somebody's bodily autonomy if we don't have any good reason to do it?
I can agree with that.
Okay.
But I don't
I don't think that
agree
there's
that
any
that's
good reason.
exactly what abortion
I
is.
don't think that there's any good reason to infringe upon a woman's right to bodily autonomy as it relates to access to elective lethal abortions in the first 20 weeks of pregnancy, right?
Well, I do
Thereby
have one.
making it a human rights violation. And because we agree that human rights violations should be protected by the state, you would have to agree that a woman and girl's access to abortion should be protected by the federal government unless you can name good reason that women shouldn't be able to access abortion.
Well, women accessing abortion, they can still get it, and I'm not even against abortion.
Okay, if you're not against abortion, that means that you
But
can't
that doesn't
name
have
good
any.
reason why it should be illegal. And because you can't name good reason that it should be illegal, then you'd agree that it's a human rights violation to make it illegal. Thereby, you'd say that no state should have the legal ability to make it illegal.
But I'm not. But just because that's my belief doesn't mean that that's not what shouldn't be voted on by
It
other
does.
people.
It does. It actually, your belief would
I
imply that it
don't
shouldn't be
believe
voted on by other people since it would be a human rights violation. And we agree that those should be protected by the federal government.
I mean, I get if you base it down that simply, yeah. But it's more complicated than that.
Okay, what am I missing that makes it more complicated, thereby making my point false?
I mean, just talking about abortion in general. I mean, I still have my own. I said I'm not against abortion, and I'm not. I don't care. You do your body whatever you
Yeah.
want. But I do understand sometimes with it, a man gets, he might want the child and he doesn't get that opportunity because the woman doesn't want to. And I've always said there's like that's that gray area I get into where it's like I feel for the man.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
I do.
If I'm married and me and my wife plan on having a child and she finally gets pregnant, we start talking about names, buying clothes, baby cribs, etc. Okay, then she gets an abortion and the man's sad. Okay, well, I'd be sad if I was in his shoes. But I don't think that the emotions of men should be able to control what women can or can't do with their bodies.
I said it's that gray area where I feel bad, but
I mean, I don't even think it's a gray area. I think that you could say that you'd feel for a man in those shoes without saying that it's a moral gray area, right? It's not a gray area at all. On one hand, you feel for the man. On another hand, it's certainly the case that men's emotions shouldn't be able to control what women can or can't do with their bodies.
like I said I didn't disagree with what you're saying there. I feel for the man in that situation, or if it was vice versa and men could have women, I'd feel for the women in that situation.
Me too. I agree. But I
I
don't think
don't
that introduces any
feel
moral gray
bad.
area. I don't think that that fact is morally relevant.
Okay.
Well, is there anything else that you want to go over?
No.
Cool. So we're going to move on to the next guest. Everyone give us a minute. We got Luke loading up in